Good evening. Welcome again to Biblical Insights with Bob. We're glad you're with us this evening. We've been looking at some New Testament passages and trying to glean some insights and some challenges for ourselves. So tonight I want to look at a couple of passages, one from Mark and one verse from the Psalms. The passage from Mark is kind of a backdrop against which I want to look at the Psalm. So I call it a call to calmness. We live in a wild world, don't we? Sometimes we need to just be calm. Have you ever had one of those days? Everything goes wrong, nothing fits. I know if I could talk to each one of you personally, you can tell me about some of the storms that come into your life. Various kinds of storms, sickness, financial crisis, difficult relationship, loss of something you love. The storms of life come to all of us, don't they? So I'm reading two passages today, and I think they're parallel passages. First one is from 4th chapter of the Gospel of Mark, beginning at verse 35. It's a story of Jesus calming the sea. On that day when evening came, he said to them, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd, they took along with them in the boat. They took him along with them, Jesus, in the boat, just as he was. And here's an interesting part of that verse. And other boats were with them. And there arose a fierce gale of wind, and the waves were breaking over the boat so much that the boat was already filling up. Now, Jesus himself was in the stern, asleep on a cushion. And they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we're perishing?" And he got up and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Hush, be still." And the wind died down and it became perfectly calm. And he said to them, "Why are you afraid? How is it that you have no faith?" They became very much afraid and said to one another, "Who then is this? Even the wind and the sea obey him." I want to talk about that in a little more detail, but I want to focus on a very short verse from Psalms 46. Kind of parallels what Jesus said. He said to them, "Why are you afraid?" Now in this, he says, Psalm 46:10, "Cease striving," or "be still, and know that I am God." Be still and know that I am God. Can you get the connection there? Why are you afraid? Be still. He was in the back of the boat sleeping. So he was setting an example. They were trying to calm the storm on their own, and it wasn't working. But he spoke the word, and it calmed. So let's look at it. I mentioned there were other boats with him. One of the things that I've noticed many times as I read this passage of Scripture, when we're going through our storms, other people are affected. There are other boats affected by our storms. And for their sake as well, we need to be calm. This is a call to be calm, be still, quit striving, and know that I am God. The disciples said when they woke him up, "Don't you care that we're perishing?" And Jesus said in the psalm, be still. To be still is to get quiet. Have you ever noticed we know God best in our quiet times? I like to have a quiet time each morning when I can just be alone with God, talk to Him, listen to Him, read His Word. And it seems so often He moves in so close. For many years now, it seems like around 4 o'clock in the morning, I'll wake up and just be alone with God. And I'm amazed at how many times He's moved in close, and I've come up with a thought, an idea that I don't believe came from my own thinking. I believe He was there. So we need to be still. Be still and quiet. Be still in meditation. We need to think about Him. Richard Foster, in one of his books, talked about centering down, just shutting out everything else. And say, that's hard to do in the world in which we live. How do you close out? How do you even, in your quiet time, how do you shut out those thoughts that try to creep in on you? I struggle with that many times. But center down on God and His Word. In the New American Standard, it says, cease striving, or be still, but it's translated cease striving. In the Amplified Bible, I want us to look at that Amplified Bible of verse 39. And he arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, hush now, be still, be muzzled. And the wind, I love this part, and the wind ceased. It sank to rest as if exhausted by its own beating. And there was immediately a great calm, a perfect peacefulness. Cease striving. Now, remember that the disciples were doing everything they could to fight the storm. They were bailing out the water. They were trying to guide the boat. They were fighting. And he said to the sea, calm down, be muzzled. And it relaxed as if exhausted by its own beating. Don't you think the disciples felt the same way, exhausted by their own striving? So many times when we face a storm, we get all caught up in it and we strive and we struggle. We try to solve the problem on our own. And the psalm comes to us, be still and know that I'm God. We need to learn that, don't we? You noticed he said, be still and know. Jesus put that in the form of a question. He said, why are you still afraid? If they knew that he was God, why would they be afraid? You see, fear and anxiety come from not knowing. To know is to understand and to acknowledge. To know, this kind of knowledge comes from study. Here we have a devotional knowledge, reading, listening, meditation. Folks, I believe you can't read a few verses a day or a daily devotional and have that kind of knowledge. I think you have to get into the Word. I think you have to understand the Word, to dig into it, to put some effort into it. Do we really know him on this level? Now, one of the things, if you read the Bible, particularly the Old Testament, the word know, in the biblical sense, is a term for an intimate relationship. And Adam knew his wife, and she bore him a son. The intimacy of marriage is to know. So there's an intimacy. If we really know God that way, we have to do it by spending time. We don't do it just by professing or going through the motions, or we have to spend time with. We have to get to know him. I remember one time at a preacher's gathering, I heard a pastor talk. And he says, I was reminded in my devotions, God seemed to say to me, you know about me, but you don't know me. And I think that's a problem we have to beware of, is knowing about him, but not knowing him. My desire is to know him on a level that I could put my trust in him. To know is also to experience. Teachers tell us we don't really know a subject until it enters the realm of our experience. Now, at one time in my life, I was a sales engineer. I studied electrical theory, electrical engineering. And in high school, I took some math, I took some trig, and I took some geometry. And I knew about it, but only as I began to apply it in my engineering experience did I really understand and know what I was talking about. So to really understand, to know Jesus, you have to experience him. One time when I was in Bible college, I was driving down the interstate, and I was praying for power. Do we ever do that? And it seemed to me, the thought came to me as if I didn't hear a voice, but the thought came to me in such a real way. It said, when you need the power, I'll give it to you. The experience. Are you experiencing him? One of the things that I'm realizing more and more is when we experience him, there's a joy. We talk about the joy of our salvation. We talk about the peace of Christ. It's when we know him. Be still and know that I am God. Why are you still afraid? Was it because they didn't know? Because afterwards, remember what they asked? Who then is this that even the sea, the wind and the sea obey him? They didn't really know him. My prayer is that we come to the point where we really know him. The last part of that psalm, be still and know that I am God. The answer to the disciples' question was the answer to their storm. And that's true for ours. To know that he is God is the answer for our storms. Be still and know that I am God. I am whatever you need. In the Old Testament, the words I am God appear about 200 times. We need to know that. In the New Testament, in the Gospel of John, 7 times in the Gospel of John, I want you to look at them with me, we find Jesus saying, I am. I am. Now, the name of God is I am. Talk about that in a minute. But here in John, chapter 6, verse 35, I am the bread of life. I'm your provider. In chapter 8, verse 12, I'm the light of the world. In chapter 10, verse 7, I'm the door. In verse 11 of that same chapter, I'm the good shepherd. Remember the 23rd Psalm? Jesus said, I'm the good shepherd. In chapter 11, verse 25, I am the resurrection and the life. Folks, we don't really live till we live his life. Chapter 14, verse 6, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. In chapter 15, verse 1, I'm the true vine, and you are the branches. He's the source of life. He's the source of everything we need. Now, in verse 8, chapter 8, verse 58, Jesus said to them, and I think there's a special significance here, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was born, I am. I am. Remember, in the book of Exodus, Moses was out in the desert, and he saw this burning bush, and a voice came out of the bush and said, take off your shoes, for you're on holy ground. In that conversation, God sent Moses to bring his people out of Egypt. And Moses asked him the question, whom shall I say has sent me? And God said, here it is, I am that I am. I am. Now, the word Yahweh or Jehovah is the Hebrew for I am. Originally it was 4 letters, YHWH, which means to be. I am. I am everything you need. Whatever you need, I am. Whatever storm you're facing, I am is the answer. I am not over whatever you need, but I am wherever you are. Look with me at another psalm, Psalm 139, verse 7 through 10. It says, where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, behold, you're there. If I take the wings of the dawn, if I dwell in the remotest part of the sea, even there your hand will lead me, and your right hand will lay hold of me. I am wherever you are. Folks, when we trust him, he's with us wherever we are. Finally, he says, I am whenever you need me. God is eternal, always, ever in the present tense. Before Abraham was, Jesus said, I am, present tense. I am before Abraham. That's why he sees the future, because he's already there, whenever we need him. We've already mentioned that I am is his name, present tense. In Matthew 28, when Jesus was preparing to ascend into heaven, he said to his disciples, and lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Whatever you fear in your future, boy, this is something we need to remember in today's culture. whatever you fear in the future, He's already there, and He's promised to be there with us. When the money fails, He's there. When the doctor says it's bad, He's there. And most important of all, when we come to the end of our days on this earth, the end of life, folks, He's there. He's there. So think about that psalm. Be still and know that I am God. Powerful words. Let's think about them. I hope you've gained some insights in this little talk. Thank you for joining us.